These monkeys appear storms sweep in from the Atlantic, bringing Korup some of the heaviest rainfall in the world, more than 30 feet a year. As the forest dries, heat and humidity create near-perfect conditions for plant growth. Far below the forest canopy, it's a twilight world, only occasionally pierced by shafts of sunlight. Here, in the humid darkness, plants and animals need to be especially equipped to survive. Parasitic plants flourish in the roots of trees, only the flowers appear above ground. The dappled light is ideal for begonias and ferns. The pygmy chameleon is a living clue to the great age of Korup. It's one of many kinds of animal which are found only in this part of Cameroon, and it was here before the Ice Age. On the forest floor, huge colonies of driver ants prey on slower-moving creatures. Fearsome predators, they kill and consume any animal unable to escape. There are clouds of butterflies of many species. Always the search for food. The drill is one of the few large animals which can survive on the forest floor. It lives mostly on fallen fruit. This is a young male. drills are rare baboons, now restricted to a few forests in southwest Cameroon. They forage over a wide area in noisy groups, scouring the floor for roots and insects, finding fruits where they can. Immediately above the floor, the forest is surprisingly open. Poor light discourages abundant plant growth, but the trees have adapted to these conditions, developing large leaves which serve as efficient collectors of light. Their flowers grow directly on branches, on trunks, and even on the leaves themselves. Their fruits do exactly the same. But food is hard to find in this twilight world, and large animals must search diligently for it. The white-collared mangabe, a close relative of the drill. "80 feet up, creepers form a forest highway. From floor to canopy, the forest changes, and each level provides particular opportunities for plants and animals. Some trees grow to more than 150 feet. Just below the treetops, troops of monkeys forage the canopy for food. Preuss's red colobus, found only in Korup. Colobus mix freely with other species of monkey, like the white-nosed guenon. There's safety in numbers. A mixed group is quicker to detect potential danger. It's a crowned guenon which usually gives the alarm. Colobus have come to rely on their natural vigilance. The highest level of the forest is made by huge trees which rise into the sunlight, emerging clear of the rest. Here, over 200 feet up, is the nesting site of the crowned eagle. It feeds mainly on monkeys. Its huge talons will easily crush the skull of its victim. But the chick will be fed at the nest for more than a year, until it's strong enough to kill for itself. The whole forest, from the floor to the top of the tallest tree, behaves as a single organism. The trees alone are not the forest. The animals don't simply live in the forest. Together, plants and animals are the forest. Trees provide the framework for this carefully balanced community. But the trees must protect themselves if they are to survive among so many hungry animals. Red-eyed grasshoppers and caterpillars threaten the very existence of the trees on which they feed. Trees cannot run away, so over many thousands of years they've developed other, more subtle methods of defense. The tree's defenses and the animal's responses are both prime factors in the evolution of tropical forests. To save their leaves, trees have evolved special protective chemical compounds. So successfully that over 90% of forest animals cannot feed on living plants. They must eat either decomposing matter or each other. Inside some leaves, the veins are lined with thick deposits of tannins which make them distasteful. In others, poisonous crystals such as strychnine and cyanide occur throughout the leaf. Lignin, seen here in red, strengthens the leaves, making them difficult to digest. These chemical defenses have compelled animals like the colobus to develop very specialized feeding behavior. Bright red young leaves have few protective compounds. Protection develops later as they mature and turn green. Monkeys have learnt to select the young leaves and reject the unpalatable older leaves. Colobus are agile and acrobatic, moving from tree to tree, selecting choice leaves from many different species. And with the monkeys continually on the move, many young leaves do survive to maturity. Attracted by the noise, the crowned eagle waits for an opportunity to strike. More often than not, the monkeys spot the eagle and sound the alarm. Unsuccessful, the parent returns to the nest with a sprig of leaves. The hungry chick is not impressed. Forest monkeys live on small quantities of a great variety of plants because they're always on the move. But for smaller and less mobile animals, like caterpillars, the story is quite different. But still, a balance between the needs of the animal and the needs of the plant must be preserved. Down on the forest floor, a female butterfly emerges from her chrysalis. Now she has a single purpose: to find the riccia, the only plant where her eggs have a chance of survival. This may take several hours. She searches for it, tasting individual leaves by means of special receptors on her forelegs. Eventually she finds a riccia and lays a single egg on a young leaf. After hatching, the caterpillar eats its own egg sac and begins the complex pattern of behavior upon which its survival and that of Riccia depends. The full-grown leaves of Riccia are indigestible, so the caterpillar must develop on the young leaf. First, it inspects the whole leaf. If the leaf is not large enough to sustain its feeding, the caterpillar will lie dormant until the leaf has grown, but it must begin to feed before the leaf develops protective compounds. Now the caterpillar starts feeding, but only on the non-growing parts, such as the tip and the mid-rib. To survive, the caterpillar must grow as the leaf grows. The mature caterpillar now pupates, with the leaf still intact. A fine balance has been achieved. Riccia has survived the attentions of a predator. The caterpillar has matured into a butterfly. These monkeys appear to be eating the flowers of a pentadesma tree. If the flowers were to be eaten, it would be a disaster for the tree, because the flowers contain its vital reproductive organs, which must be protected against hungry animals. But the monkeys are not actually eating them. The flowers produce vast amounts of nectar, rich in nutrients, to attract the animals which are necessary for pollination. In a forest where food is scarce, nectar is a vital source of nourishment for the monkey. The flower's reproductive parts are protected by a high concentration of tannin, which makes them inedible. While the monkey has been drinking, yellow pollen has brushed onto his chin. When the monkey finds another pentadesma tree, the pollen is brushed onto the receptive female flower parts. The pentadesma flower is pollinated. Far from damaging it, the monkey is helping the species to survive. In temperate zones, trees are protected by winter. For 5 months of the year, they're safe from predators. Here in the tropics, there's no severe winter, so right through the year, plants and animals must coexist. A spectacular example of this interdependence is the parkia tree, which is crucial to the survival of many different animals. High in the canopy, over 100 feet up at the tips of its branches, the parkia produces its extraordinary blossoms. Over 3 hours, from each of these blossom buds, 3,000 tiny flowers will grow. Again, it's the nectar which is important, and a sunbird is attracted to the first drops produced at sunset. Honeybees are also attracted. By nightfall, the parkia flowers are producing enormous quantities of nectar. This nectar is a major attraction for the forest's hungry night animals. It attracts nocturnal ants to the parkia. The flowers have a rich peach-like smell, and that attracts a pothole. The pothole is a nocturnal primate. Although he has large eyes, he relies on a keen sense of smell to locate food. Once he finds the blossom, he licks up the nectar but leaves the rest of the flower intact, avoiding the parkia's defensive chemical compounds. A dormouse sips nectar and retreats. The parkia flowers are at the tips of its branches. This leaves the dormouse vulnerable, but is ideal for the bats. As the bat licks the nectar, its breast brushes up against the flowers, and covered in pollen, it flies away. After a few hours, every bat has picked up pollen. This is vital to the parkia because the female flowers can only be fertilized by pollen brought from another parkia tree. Bats have excellent memories and follow regular feeding routes. They visit many parkia trees in the course of a single night, so the female flowers have a good chance of being pollinated. By dawn, the flowers have wilted. Butterflies and bees come to feed on the leftover nectar and pollen. Over the next few days, the blossom gradually breaks down. After a while, only the individual pollinated flowers are left. Eventually, these develop into long bean-like fruits, each containing the seed, which will guarantee the safe future of the parkia and the animals that rely on it. After pollination, trees need some means to disperse their seeds to places where they can germinate. The seeds are often contained inside a nutritious fruit. Birds swallow the seeds when they eat the fruit. The collared sunbird and the yellow-throated tinkerbird depend on fruiting trees for a large part of their diet. The seeds of Alcornia are indigestible, protected by chemical compounds. They pass through the bird's digestive system intact. Birds and fruiting trees often depend on each other. But monkeys, too, help to disperse the seeds. The white-collared mangabe is vulnerable to predators while feeding in exposed treetops. So he stores the fruit in special pouches in his cheeks and takes it away to eat later in a safer place. In falling, this forest giant has smashed out its own shape in the canopy, allowing light onto the forest floor. This tremendous destruction plays an important part in maintaining the diversity of the forest. Because of the light, many seeds can now germinate here. Under the closed canopy, they would have had no such chance. The winged fruits of a red ironwood tree nearby depend on these cleared areas, which give them the opportunity they need to establish themselves. These seeds are the first to colonize and exploit such light gaps. Blown by the wind, some seeds land in ideal conditions. Germinating quickly, the seedling must now compete against other trees to reach and fill that vital new space in the canopy. A bright red pigment protects growing leaves against the harmful radiation of the sun. The young tree grows rapidly upwards towards the light, all its energy going into the production of leaves. Eventually, the successful tree reaches the canopy. Then it branches and shuts out the light which would have enabled other plants to compete. In the full sunlight of the canopy, the grown tree flushes into an entire crown of bright red young leaves. After 3 days hunting, the male has killed a monkey. The female displays over the kill. They raise a single chick. Occasionally, 2 eggs are laid, but if both hatch, the chicks will battle until one dies. In the hot, saturated conditions of a tropical forest, trees suffer not only from grazing animals, but also from other plants. Often leaves are colonized by mosses and lichens. This greatly reduces their ability to absorb light, and this in turn reduces the tree's ability to compete with other trees. In such a keenly competitive environment, it's essential for the tree to be healthy. Orchids and creepers have a similar weakening effect. Protective chemicals do not help here. One tree in particular, the Barteria, has solved this problem by evolving a special relationship with one species of ant. On this young Barteria tree, a queen ant arrives to start her colony. She searches quickly to ensure that the tree is a Barteria and that it's not occupied by other ants. The tree has hollow branches. The queen chews her way into them to lay her eggs and found her colony. And so the unusual relationship begins. The ant can only survive in the Barteria tree, and the tree will only reach the canopy if it's protected by this ant. As the first black worker ants emerge, they are confronted by aggressive red weaver ants. The red ants are foraging, not nesting here, but will attack anything that crosses their path. Black ants of the young colony back off into the hollow branches. Some don't make it. Survival of the Barteria tree depends on the black ant's ability to drive off the weaver ants and keep control of the tree. Inside the hollow branches, scale insects feed on the sap of the tree. These insects secrete a sugar solution which is the staple food of the black ants. To obtain it, the ants milk them regularly. As the colony grows, the balance of power shifts in its favor. The battle may continue for several weeks until the red ants are finally driven off. The black ants have deadly stings which paralyze and eventually kill. Below, on the forest floor, a hemipteran bug searches for fallen ants. It picks up the dead ants and sucks them dry. Then, strangely, it sticks the corpses onto its back, camouflaging itself against predators. The black ants, having driven off the weaver ants, now set about the task of cleaning up the tree. Some descend to the base, where they gnaw through the smothering creepers and kill them. At the top of the tree, other worker ants clean up the leaves. Beneath its protective silken mantle, this caterpillar normally escapes the attentions of ants and other predators and grazes in safety on the leaf. But the black ants will have none of this, and the caterpillar is evicted. Meticulously, the ants clean up every piece of debris. Cleared of all damaging insects and creepers, the Barteria can now compete effectively with other trees, protected by its ants. In return, the ants can use Barteria's hollow branches to tend their scale insects, their only source of food, and raise their young. The weaver ants make their way back to their nesting tree. Their nests are compact structures of living leaves, extraordinary nests, built in an extraordinary way. The worker ants use their own larvae to stitch the leaves together. Squeezed gently, like a tube of toothpaste, the larva exudes a sticky thread. Remarkably, the larvae survive this process, unharmed. Inside the nest, worker ants prepare a winged queen for flight. Ants on the leaf outside beat out a warning to the workers inside as their main predator, the tree pangolin, approaches. The pangolin uses his long, sticky tongue to gather up the ants. The scales of his body give excellent protection against their painful stings. Most forest mammals are nocturnal. The Anguantibo, a rare cousin of the potto, forages only at night. Despite his huge eyes, the Anguantibo has poor eyesight and so relies on a keen sense of smell to locate food. Another strange inhabitant of this African forest is the pygmy flying squirrel. It weighs less than an ounce. The squirrels live in colonies of up to 30 inside hollow trees, only emerging at night to forage for fruits. Special wing-like membranes link its limbs, allowing it to glide short distances. In forests like Korup, where nutrients are scarce, trees which offer a home to animals like the flying squirrels may actually benefit from being hollow. Inside the tree, waste droppings from these animals act as a fertilizer. This could be essential because, paradoxically, this lush forest grows on some of the world's poorest soils. Almost all the nutrients are found in the first inch of soil. It may seem incredible, but these enormous trees, some 200 feet tall and perhaps 1,000 years old, just sit on the forest floor, supported by giant buttresses. Their roots are often just below the surface leaf litter. Dead leaves fall to the forest floor throughout the year. Fungi break down and absorb vital nutrients from these leaves and reduce them to skeletons. Microscopic networks of fungal threads infiltrate the leaf litter and feed on it, absorbing its nutrients. It's from the fungus that the tree roots obtain their nutrients, because some fungi weave a mantle of threads around the roots. And this mantle passes on essential minerals to the tree and in return receives a supply of carbohydrates. The relationship is vital in returning nutrients from the leaf litter to the tree. And when conditions are right, the fungal threads interweave to form a fruiting structure, the mushroom. Because of the extreme age of forests like Korup, many unusual relationships have evolved, not all of mutual benefit. A solitary stink ant scavenges on the forest floor. As the ant searches for food, it is infected by breathing in microscopic spores of a fungus. In the days which follow, the fungus grows in its brain, and the ant's whole pattern of behavior is changed. For the first time in its life, it starts to climb. Driven on by the growing fungus, it struggles to the top of the plant. It sinks in its mandibles and dies. Over the next few weeks, the fungus continues to develop, feeding on the body of the dead ant. Ants killed in this way are quite common. From the orange tip, fungal spores are rained down to infect other ants. Fungi are not the only organisms that break down plant and animal tissues. Inside this fallen tree, a community of plants and animals are at work feeding upon the wood and breaking it down. Fungi often enter first, creating chambers and channels which enable animals such as termites to enter. Much of the fallen wood in this forest is broken down by termites. However, they are unable to digest the wood themselves. Inside the stomach of each termite, a mass of single-celled animals is at work. These digest the dead wood the termite has swallowed and produce simple sugars, food for the termite. Without these animals, termites would die, and the forest could not survive in its present form. Beetle larvae are the first invaders of the heartwood. With insatiable appetites, they force their way through the toughest wood, opening up channels. These channels are then used by other animals, including the driver ants. Predatory driver ants are nomadic, and their huge colonies roam over the forest floor in a constant search for prey. Soldier ants protect the relentless column of workers. There may be as many as 20 million ants in a single driver colony. By the sheer volume of what they consume, they, as much as any other predator in the forest, help maintain the population balance. It took this colony 3 whole days to cross this log. The crystal clear water is almost devoid of nutrients, because the trees have been so successful in intercepting them before they can be washed into the river. This huge community of plants and animals depends on the microorganisms of the forest floor. With their help, the forest survives on some of the world's poorest soils by intercepting nutrients before they are lost to the soil or washed away. Any upset in this fine balance could reduce the forest's ability to maintain itself, and if the forest goes, only desert scrub will be left. Several months have passed, and the young eagle is now flying, but still being fed at the nest. Its future as head of the food chain is closely linked to the survival of the forest community below. A monkey's skull, surprisingly perhaps, signals a healthy forest, for monkeys are the first to disappear if a forest is disturbed. They and the rest of the forest community have responded successfully to the challenges imposed by nature over millions of years. But these responses have left them especially vulnerable to the new challenges imposed by man and his modern technology. Highly specialized, they are not able to readapt in time. Africa has already lost more than half of her forests. The rest may disappear within 30 years. so may most of the tropical forests of the world. With the extinction of perhaps half of all the plants and animals on Earth, the course of evolution will be irrevocably altered. Forests like Korup must be protected, for without them, the future of all life on Earth is at risk.